I'll do that right now since it's 7:01. So thank you everyone for joining us. This is super awesome. We have students from a variety of programs here today. So we have students from the Youth as Civic Experts Network and Equity Civics Youth Fellowship. We have students from Civics Unplugged, which is a program that we will eventually work with later. So I'm really excited for those students to join us. We also have iCivics Educator Network members on the line and on video. And then we also have Civics Now Coalition members and their affiliates as well joining us. And people will be joining throughout the entirety of this webinar. So just so everyone knows, we have Jess Todtfeld, who is a media expert. Super duper excited and very thankful to have him joining us today. I will let him take it away because I am not the expert and I should not be talking, but I do want to thank everyone so very much for joining us this evening. And please, Jess wants questions. So chat them if you cannot raise your hand, and we will make sure that we get to those throughout the evening.
All right,
Jess, take it away.
I'm going to jump in and start. And before I let you guys know exactly who I am and how it can be helpful to you, I want to say this. As an adult, as an American, thank you. Students, people tuning in, thank you for being a voice. We want to hear more voices from young people on these issues. Your voice counts and your voice matters. It matters a lot because this will be your world. It already is. It's all of our world, but you'll be here longer. So I wanted to just say that and start out that way. A big thing today we're going to be talking about is just how you can have more control, techniques, but really confidence when it comes to working with the media. And the way I define media is, yes, it's traditional media, which is TV and print and radio, but it's also now, it's also Instagram Live or TikTok or Zoom like we're doing today. Or FaceTime. Actually, I have a client who did an interview with the TV network through FaceTime in the last week. And she was asking me for tips, and that doesn't come up all the time, but I gave her some, and it's very similar to what you'll be getting today. So I'll give you a little bit of background on me. My name's Jess Todtfeld, and I've been a TV producer. I've been a host. I've been a reporter. And I enjoyed doing all of that, but for the last 15 years, I've actually been helping people to not only do a better job in front of the media, but looks better, sound better, and feel better. And that word feel comes up all the time because, you know, we're human beings. We want to feel our best. You know, speaking to the media is kind of a version of public speaking. And sometimes people get a little nervous and all of that. And I want to be able to, if I can give you all of the techniques, or many of the techniques, as many as we can talk about today, then you're going to feel better. You're going to feel more confident. And really, you know, sometimes people talk about public speaking and feeling a little bit more nervous. And they talk about fear of speaking. And it's not really a fear of speaking. I'm going to define it for you right now. It's actually fear of the unknown. So the bigger thing that's out there is the unknown. We don't know how something's going to go or what it'll feel like and look like. It makes us nervous. We're real people, all of us. Doesn't matter what age you are or what place you came from, where you live, or your background. It's the same for everybody. So the more I eliminate the unknown today, the better it's going to be for you. And you're going to say, all right, I think I got enough there and I got this. That's what I want for you. That's my goal for you. And at various times, right now we have everybody muted, but I will open questions, and sure, you can type it in, but you can also unmute and say, hey, Jess, and ask me a question. In fact, I want this to be interactive today, even though I have a little outline of what I want to share with you guys. I want you to, if you really have a burning question in the moment, and you can make it quick because we got about an hour and change. I guess we have some extra time for Q&A. I'm going to give you the okay. You can hit unmute and say, hey, Jess, you don't have to turn your camera on unless you want to, but you can unmute yourself and say that. So here's the big question. as we start today out. When it comes to speaking to traditional media, TV, print, radio, what do you think is more important? Style, which would be things like body language and voice and how you kind of carry yourself. So style, or substance. Substance would be what you say. And this is your only trick question of the day. And you guys can unmute yourselves because I want this to be just quickly and then mute yourself again. This is causing trouble. What do you think? Style or substance? Yell it out.
Style.
We got one for style.
You need both.
Substance.
Two
Yeah,
sides
I
of the
think
same
both.
coin.
I would say both.
I agree with both.
A good balance.
You guys are faster than all the adults and big presidents of companies that I work with, and I've helped the, the United Nations. You guys got to it faster. You're awesome. And even somebody was saying, I don't have sound. Oh, somebody, if you don't have sound, maybe you have to, well, I'm going to make sure that, Amber, you try to help that person who's having trouble with sound. Okay, so you're absolutely right. You do need to have both. So it's not just, a lot of times people think, oh, it's, we should talk the whole time about body language and move your hands and all that. Or this is just what you should say. Absolutely both. I'm thrilled that that's how we're starting. By the way, I just want to give a few more details about me. So I left television, started my company about 15 years ago. I've been a guest in the media. There I am, or there's an article of me in the New York Times behind my shoulder. And when I had written I've written 4 books about communication, 2 of them about media, 2 of them about speaking. But when I was promoting one of them, I set a Guinness record for being interviewed the most times in 24 hours. And that was 112 different, it was radio stations for the record. And what does that mean to all of you? It means I've been in your position. I've been in the hot seat and had people ask me questions. And not only do I help people of all ages and groups and the United Nations, I've helped folks from all different countries all around the world, but I've been in that position. So I have so much to share with you guys today. So let's talk about style. So I said style and substance. Those are really the two. There's my outline for today. There's more to it, but style we're going to start with, and we're going to get into substance. And substance for you will be, out of everything that you could say, how do you pick the best things that you can say that you feel most comfortable with out of, you know, your whole brain of what you'd want to say? And how do you have more control over the questions? I'm going to give you some techniques for that. And control over the interview. And the good news is you really have more control than you realize. So that's great. And I'll show you how to be more quotable. So that's on the substance side, but we'll start on style. So style, what should we do? Should we, and I know I'm on camera today, so I'm going to show you as much as I can. Instead of putting up a PowerPoint and just reading stuff to you, I'm just going to talk to you because people like authentic people. I am going to do my best to be as real and authentic today as possible. I say do my best. But I want to share one thing. I have a light over there and it's kind of washing me out when you're on camera. So taking foundation from the local drugstore and a little sponge that just matches your skin tone, I'm going to do this right in front of you. I'm going to see how well I can see myself. Actually, I'm going to double click so I can make myself just a little bit bigger. And I'm going to put on a little foundation that will just help me to not be as shiny and washed out or make it look like you don't have to have this, by the way, when you're on camera, but I thought I would demonstrate it so you can see the difference. Now, some segment of the people who are tuning in right now today have put on makeup. And some people haven't. I went a good chunk of my life without makeup. Then I started working in television, and I realized when I went on camera without makeup that I just kind of looked like I didn't sleep the night before. I just looked, you know, not my best. So this is, you don't have to do this, but I just wanted you to see kind of a before and after. So I'm going to put some here. Yes, for the people who wear makeup, there's ways to make it better, concealer and all these things, but this is the easiest way to do it. You walk into a drugstore and you say, I'm going to be on camera. I just want some makeup that matches my skin tone. And what can you give me? And it's like $8. And the sponge was maybe another dollar or two. Sometimes they just give it to you, depending where you go. And I can't really see myself so well. So I hope I did a good job on here. But the whole point is, I just want to look kind of like you see people who are doing something professional on TV. Do you have to have that? I keep making sure to say this. No, because I just talked about being real and authentic. And this is something that I hope doesn't get in the way of me being real and authentic, because I'm going to be sharing my thoughts with you today. So let's get into more about style. So, well, we could talk about how to dress. So I made a choice today. I could have worn a suit with my tie up to here. And I thought, you know what, I'm talking to students today. And actually I have 2 teenagers who live in my house who advise me on certain things and making sure that I'm on track with certain things. And I wanted to look a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more accessible. So I didn't go with that look. I went with this look today. For you, you're going to go with a look that you may have iCivics branding. I've seen some videos where there's some iCivics branding. Or you may just pick something where, you look nice, but it's nothing that is drawing too much attention or taking our attention off of what it is that you say. And Jennifer says, thanks for the shirts. I know you guys got some shirts, so that's awesome. And one thing I'll say as far as colors, a lot of times solid colors are usually the safest. All white or all black are not always best. I mean, listen, in the end of the day, do your thing and say something amazing. But I'm just going to give you some pointers as far as what to wear. But all black sometimes can look like the absence of color on the screen, kind of like your TV when it's off. And all white can be so bright that it kind of throws off the lighting sometimes. And we just want people, this is what we want. We want them listening to you and focused on you. So we don't really want anything to be too distracting. And sometimes as I pick something with lines, I'm trying to move in a certain way. Sometimes if there's too many lines on your shirt, it can give a little interference pattern. Good news, you can test things out. You can go on Zoom or Skype and open up your camera and see yourself and test out what does it look like. So there's so much more that's available to you today. So as far as body language, what should we do? Should we sit here real stiff and just kind of talk like this and be real monotone and or look over here and be reading? Maybe I'll put it over here. I'm looking over here and I'm reading off my screen. What do you guys think? Boring, probably, right? So we want to be a little bit more interesting. So there's only 3 areas when it comes to body language, which we're going to talk about first, that will help you look better. Only 3. The first is moving our head, just making sure it's relaxed, that we're moving around, that we're not, stiff and locked down. Literally, they call it a talking head. These people on the news, you just see them sitting there like, well, one thing that happened today in Washington is they're called talking heads because they're so stiff and boring. They need media training, but you guys are getting it early, so you'll be awesome. And the nice thing about you guys is you're more used to talking to cameras, whether on your computer or on your phone, than most people who are older. So that's an advantage for you. So anyway, moving your head, that's one. Moving your body, not locking down on the chair and being stiff. So your head, just allowing your body, not in any kind of weird way, but allowing it to move. And the third part, I'm just naturally doing that, is moving my hands. And moving my hands where it can be seen right around the middle of my body. And the reason is, this is how we talk as human beings. And it looks more interesting. And I'm not saying come up with special hand gestures. That would be, again, weird. We don't want to do that. One thing I'll say, if you're talking to a webcam, whether you're doing an interview for a video podcast or an actual news channel says, hey, we'll interview you through Zoom or Skype or FaceTime or whatever it is. If your hands are too close to the camera, they look enormous. So that would be weird. So let's So we just kind of keep them here. I'm about 1.5 feet away from the camera. So, you know, I can move my hands here and it looks okay and normal. So I wanted to share that. And also you should test your lighting. So I have a light over there. You can grab a light from around the house. I'm going to just turn my webcam up. That's actually a fancier camera that I'm not using right now. But just above it, I went on Amazon, and for about $30, there was a special little video light. And I bought one that can be plugged in. Sometimes they need a battery and then they shut off. And you know, rechargeable battery. But you can look around the house. You can actually go to a hardware store and you can buy kind of these old metal lights that have a clamp, and just, you know, screw a light in. They sell those, and you can look around your house and see if you just have extra lighting, just so people can see your face. I made an extra decision when I set up this room to have something interesting behind me, and actually there's a light. I'm going to move away. That is in this room. I turned that off because it's a little overpowering, but there's a second little light that I just happen to leave on because I think it makes a nice little glow back there. You don't have to have that, but just pick somewhere if you are using your webcam that looks interesting, and take a look. I mean, are there old mugs with, you know, hot chocolate or something, or coffee or whatever it is? Clear that stuff away. Right before we started, I saw my water bottle, and I was thinking, well, I don't want that on there. That's not, you know, I don't want you paying attention to that. I want it to feel like you're here in my studio. So that's all part of style. How you conduct yourself, head, hands, body. And I'm going to tell you one other thing, which people love. I work with a lot of heads of companies, and I said the United Nations. They love this part, which is if you sit all the way back on your seat. Hold on. I'm going to do this. It doesn't look as good. Anybody want to unmute and tell me that they agree? It's okay. And give you the okay. I'm going to tell you why it doesn't look. I could do the whole webinar like this. Doesn't it look not as great? I'm going to tell you why. Here's why. What's closest to the camera is largest. What's furthest away is smallest. So if I sit like this, my head gets real tiny. Let's see, I'll go like this. My head gets smaller. This area actually gets bigger. That's not what I'm going for. And it looks awkward. It looks not like what we're used to seeing in an interview. So what we want to do is we actually want to tilt. So instead of sitting straight back, we want to ignore the back of our chair. Instead of sitting straight up and stiff, we actually want to tilt about 15 degrees forward. So I'm actually leaning forward like I'm on the edge of my seat. And what happens is this is just a little bit bigger. Actually, it was kind of nice. This is a little bit smaller, and we feel good, and we're moving around, and we actually have better energy. And a lot of times when people go and they do an interview on camera, for some reason, or adults anyway, their energy is a little bit off. And I always say, if you're not passionate about your topic, then who else will be, right? So we want some of that to come through. And this is how you know. I'm going to tell you right now how you know if it's working or not. Practice at least one time with a video recording device as my hands get really big as I point at my webcam. Or take your phone and, you know, hand it off to somebody or put it on a windowsill and practice doing it at least once. And the reason why I say at least once is, you know, you may say, oh, I'm busy and I have a million other things to do. But if you do that, you'll be able to look at the video and say, oh, I didn't realize I was leaning back. You know, I remember Jess said something about tilting forward a little bit. Or you say, oh, I did kind of seem low energy. I'll just try to boost my energy up again or a little bit more and show my passion. And that's really the word that I like to share that will help you to have better energy. Back when I worked in TV, I used to be in the waiting area and I would give people donuts. That's a less healthy way of trying to get their energy up. Now I just say, if you are passionate about what you're talking about, other people will feel that passion and be affected by it. So those are some of the body language pieces. I'm going to throw in voice, and then I want to take some quick questions, and I'm going to jump into substance. So voice, this is all you need to know. And Joe, you're right. Passion equals purpose. I love it. So voice, this is all you need to know. Just play with it. Notice other people's voices who really use it. Play with the highs and lows. Play with the pauses. Notice I just paused there for a moment. And when you pause, especially in the middle of a sentence, people hang on the rest of your words. This is a life skill, people. This is a life skill, because if you pause and you practice using pauses places, you'll notice in life, people they do this. They lean in and they say, wow, something she always says is kind of powerful, where there's something about, when she says something, it seems so smart. They don't know why. So I'm sharing this with you. As you get older, you could use it in job interviews. You can try using it in class or on your friends, but I'm telling you, this is awesome and it works. And one other thing before I let you guys throw in questions on this part is sometimes people notice the ums or the ahs, or instead of ums and ahs, sometimes people say like or And the one thing is for you to record yourself. And if you see that stuff, I say for that, get a little annoyed by it, because you're going to start noticing in your daily life. And this is in practice. This is when you practice is when you don't need to be perfect. It's practice. So go do something, try out your interview. You'll say, okay, this is how you should evaluate yourself. And actually you can do this on a sheet of paper. I have people draw a line down the center. On the left side, you will write the word like at the top. What do you like about what you're doing? What works so you can do more of it? And the other side is not hate, it's improve. What should we improve? So then it's no pressure. Hate is like, oh, I hate this about myself, and oh, my hair's backwards, and what is this thing, or I have a pimple, or something that is always there, and I don't know. Let go of that. That's part of the real, authentic you. And what you're going to see as you get older, and I have to shake adults, not really, but I tell them and say, listen, when you're growing up, a lot of times you're trying to fit in. And as you get a little bit older, you realize that there's something amazing about standing out. And the more we let the world see our real, authentic self, the more we give people a chance to fall in love with us. And it really is the case. And I want you to think about people who you've watched on, YouTube or Instagram, or you name it, wherever it is that you guys are spending time. I said I have teenagers in my house. That's what they're watching. Thank you, Matt, who's agreeing with me. I want you to think, who have you seen that just was authentic and real? And were they perfect? No, they weren't perfect. But because they were authentic and real, made it so much more amazing and made it perfect. So don't worry about, oh, I stumbled somewhere. Don't worry about it. In fact, so this is going to be a life thing. When you mess something up, and I'll have to read the chat in just a second here. I'll try to make it come up on the side. Here we go. There it is. When you mess something up, that is actually your moment to shine. So this is a life thing I'm going to give you guys right now. I tell this to adults all the time that I train, that bring me in at companies, and I say to them, listen, let's say you're speaking in front of your class, and they're speaking in front of, business people that they want to, not look bad in front of, and something falls down or something breaks. Everyone's looking at them to see what they're going to do. So they have a choice. They can be all upset, or they can, say something fun in the moment. And they could say, or just, oh, a little slippery here. All right, here's what I want to tell you. Or, I have a little bit of fun with it. Sometimes if I stumble on some words, I'll say, easy for me to say. And people go, ha ha. And then we're done with it. And I just keep talking. No one ever remembers that I stumbled on some word. And that's it. It's done with. And don't worry, I'm going to tell you how to deal with questions that you're not ready for if you don't know something. But I want to share that with you. So, so play with it. Notice those ums or ahs or like, or and practice in life exchanging it with a pause. That's what we do there. And in the interview, let go of it. If you said it a few times, it's not the end of the world because you are a real person. And that's what we do sometimes. Very quickly, questions on, I'm going to look at the chat over here. Let's see here. Let's see. Somebody's audio was a little bit warbly, but they can hear it. I think that was in the beginning they were getting it. Passion equals purpose. Anybody want to unmute and ask a question? I'm getting all caught up here. Somebody online makes mistakes all the time. So I'll let you unmute or put a question in there. And if not, then I'm going to keep jumping forward, which is just fine because we're about 26 minutes into this thing. So we're good. Okay. Now we're going to talk about substance, unless somebody has a question. I see something lighten up.
I was wondering that what in terms of answering when you asked us whether substance or style mattered more, I was looking back to my school curriculum and how ancient rhetoric and things such as logos and pathos are all emphasized when it comes to stylism. And I was wondering, as a good entryway into substance, like how do we actually get people to really understand what we're trying to tell them while at the same time not giving as so much character to that style? Because sometimes, like in media, we see a lot of people just like their messages are getting across even though it's not necessarily fully of substance, and that's all the way they're characterizing themselves because it's very outlandish.
Yeah, so you all can tune into any of the news channels or anywhere that people are being interviewed. And here's what I would want you to do. Thank you for that question, by the way. I want you to look and see what you like and what you don't like. And you're going to see most of them obviously are adults. Most of them are, sometimes they're yelling at each other, or sometimes there can be name calling, or sometimes they're talking in a way where you're saying, you're not getting to the point, or I'm not really understanding where you're even going with this. And other people are thinking that too. I want you to see, what do you like? And also off of who you watch, as I brought up places where you all are spending time watching other people. Here's something else too. If you go to YouTube and you search, I did a quick search for student interviews. I want to see young people who are out there doing interviews. And the ones that I've seen that are out there, that came up first, are you have young people who, after some of the school shootings, ended up going on TV channels. And some of it was very powerful watching them. You're talking about pathos, there was so much emotion that was there, and that's a good thing. Again, the adults sometimes are like, oh, I have to act a special way because I'm being interviewed. I want you to kind of find where you feel is the right place. And the right place is having something to say, and we're going to get into that in just a moment. And I gave you some of the body language pieces. Having some motion. Emotion is really a big piece of it. And you decide, what is the right amount of motion that I want to share here? Back when I was a TV producer, sometimes something would be so heavy, somebody would get teary. And actually, as a producer, we liked that because we knew people were watching would lean in and kind of be like, oh my gosh, this is real. And then sometimes somebody would come off set and come up, to the wings and say, I'm sorry that I got emotional. We'd say that was real. Unfortunately, the people behind the scenes were like, that was great for television. This poor person was emotional. When I look at other young people who are on YouTube, I also saw Greta Thunberg, who's out there talking about climate change. And I'll sit and watch her in interviews and watch how she is a little bit more concise in her interviews. But here's the thing. You shouldn't try to be her or those other students. This is one thing. You can be number one at being you. And I tell this to people all the time. And it takes a little bit of time to figure out what does number one at being me look like. But the good news is there are signs all around. The people in your life who love you and what your family and your friends, they've seen glimpses of it. Maybe you ask your family, since you live with them, and say, well, what is it about me? What are some of the things that you think are some of my best attributes that I can use in interviews? Well, what is it? And it may be your passion. It may be that I'm going to tell you, the opposite of somebody who has a lot of energy. It may be that you're very thoughtful. So it doesn't matter whether you're right-brained or left-brained, or you're somebody who acts a certain way. We just want to bring out the best version of that. So I hope that was helpful. There's the last question. You better get it in now, because I'm going to jump into substance, which is everything you want to say. I'll peek over here. Yes.
At what point did you just kind of, it was natural for you to like have all these tips in mind, so you didn't really have to think like, oh, I have to lean forward, oh, I have to talk with my hands a little bit more? Did it just ever come naturally, or do you still to this day think that like, you have to do all these things?
Well, so I went to school to college for TV and film, and I always wanted to work in television, and I enjoyed doing that. I never thought I would necessarily be doing this, but when people were getting ready to go on, the waiting area is called the green room. It's usually painted green, but that's just what they call it. And I would be in there, and they would always ask me for tips. So I realized I better come up with some things to say. And then as time went on, I decided I wanted to own my own business and start this business helping people. I realized I better come up with more content to talk about. So I basically sat down and thought, what have I been telling people over the years, and how can I go even deeper? And that's where I started doing my own interviews. I set that Guinness record, and I said, well, what can I learn during that I can help other people with? And I got to see different interviewers who are great or terrible. Sometimes they're not very informed, by the way, which is good for you. So if you're sitting there thinking like, wow, they seem like they don't even, like, I know definitely more than them, totally fine. Take control over it. Or sometimes they're, I would say they should be nicer to you because you're younger than them, but sometimes maybe they're a jerk, just like in life. Sometimes there's some jerks out there. And here's the nice thing. We've been taught to be respectful of people who are older than us, or a teacher, and you should be respectful, but I'm going to give you some permission on something. Not that you're not going to be respectful, but I'm going to tell you that if somebody's not being as respectful to you, you can take control, or you can say, I want you all guiding the interview anyway, because we don't know how much they read through the materials. So I know I've taken your question, Felix. Thank you, by the way. And I continue to run with it. But we don't know if they read through everything and they're just kind of like, I got it, I'm going to wing it. Or they start asking you about the wrong thing. They ask you about an event, but they're not really asking you about what you were hoping to talk about. I'm going to show you ways that you can grab more control and say, here's what I really want to share with your audience today, or here's what I really want people or other students out there to learn or know today. And you're going to be surprised. 98% of the time they'll say, yeah, tell us about that. But if you do encounter a jerk, I just want to bring that up. Just say, I know you're trying to, be hip or cool or something like that. And I just want to share the best information that I can. I wouldn't advise, arguing with somebody, but for you to just kind of like realize, say something and kind of say, hey, you know what? I'm here to help students and kids. And sometimes that happens on radio, but I'm going to tell you, most people will feel like terrible bullies if they're being rude. And then I guess they're going to be, there could be somebody else who's not. And I know that the idea of this program is that you guys are all part of, is that you're going to be creating some of your own content, or you're going to be interviewed. And for the most part of what I'm referencing today is when you go out and do a traditional interview, here and there I am referencing that there are other mediums. So today I'm talking on Zoom, and whether you are talking and creating something for Instagram or Facebook or you name it, or Twitter, or in some of the materials we put out there, I mentioned TikTok. You're actually going to know more than the adults on what is really the right way to approach those mediums. I said I have 2 teenagers in my house, and my younger one, who's 14, catches me watching TikTok. He catches me. He comes by and says, "Dad, no, this is my space. Why are you?" I said, "Well, I should know, you know, what I can say to people about this." And he's like, "Why are you doing that?" Anyway, I hope this is entertaining some of you. And but we have had conversations about this, and I believe in reverse mentorships, which is a lot of times older people mentor a younger person, tell them about an industry, but we should really have reverse mentorships, which is young people also need to let older people know how certain things are, because you are better at some things out there, and it should go both ways. So when I bring up, say, TikTok, maybe there's a sweet spot where there are a lot of memes on there. So maybe there's a way of creating some sort of short content that plays with the meme. And if you feel, I always say, if in doubt, leave it out. If you are in doubt, like, am I crossing any line, or is this going to be weird in some way? Bring it up to the folks at iCivics so that they can weigh in on it, and explain to them. If you say, listen, this is where memes are, and this is why it would be a good idea, it's going to get more attention, explain it to them. And Amber is also throwing in from iCivics. She says, yes, and youth collaborations, they're key. So you may find people who you respect online or on YouTube, and you may say, oh, I want to collaborate with them. Reach out. They may love it. They may love something that you're up to. So throwing that out there. All right, let me jump over and talk about, and then we'll have some extra time. I'll take as many questions as we can. So write them down too, or actually you can put them in the chat. You can, I don't know, keep them in your head, whatever you want to do. So let's talk about substance. So when it comes to your messages, and that's, you know, what it is that you might say. Here is what I show adults often. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just show you a couple of things over here. I'm going to share my screen and put this on here and share this. So let's make this full screen, and we'll put it on here. So I call this the message system. So a message is anything that you say in the interview, that you want to say in the interview. Obviously, you could say anything in the world, but they wouldn't be a media message if you didn't decide, this is what I want to share. You know, you're not going to share about your weekend or, you know, your foot hurts or whatever. Those are not media messages. We're going to figure out, what do we want to share on this issue and share with the media. So this is the best way to prepare. This is what I do with all my clients. I say, take out a notepad and a pen. If you want to do it on the computer and that's more comfortable for you, do that. But here's what you're going to do. You're going to take 7 minutes. That's it. I make sure these are quick because you have the rest of your life and other things that you're up to. So you're going to take 7 minutes and you're going to write out not the questions you think you might get asked. You're going to write out the answers that you wish you could say. So if the interviewer said, I am too lazy to ask you good questions, why don't you just write down the answers that you would love to say, and we'll ask you questions around that. If you were given that gift, and here's the secret, you actually are given that gift and you just don't know it yet, but now you know it. I told you. So you're going to write down the answers. So you're writing out some of the answers. Oh, I'd like to bring this up, or oh, this would be pretty good. Oh, I could talk about this in the news. So you're going to write them out. And then after about 7 minutes, you could always add to it, but 7 minutes, you're going to look at it and say, holy cow, if I said half of these things, I'd be pretty happy with the interview. So I'm telling you, nobody does this. My clients do it because I've told them, and then they say, oh, I love this. This is so helpful, because people stress out about the questions. And I always say, we don't necessarily have control over the questions, but we have 100% control over our answers. I'm going to show you how to get to these answers. And I'm going to tell you right now, every question you will ever get asked ever in an interview. You ready? There it is. Who, what, when, where, why, and actually how, which is the 5 W's. Let's see if I have how on there. No, I don't have how. I just have those. Who, what, when, where, what. In journalism, news folks, they call it the 5 W's. And that's really every question. So if you're going out and you're talking about something that's in the news or even this program, they're going to say, so what is this program exactly? Who's involved? Why is it important for young people to have a voice today? Where is this event happening? When is it happening? What website should we go to sign up for whatever it is? Those are really, you're going to get 95% of the questions just on that. And by the way, when I kind of highlight for you guys, like these are life skills. I'm telling you, it's not even just interviews. I'm telling you, if you ever have something in a class or obviously a debate team goes deeper into all the ways to deal with all this stuff. But if you ever go on a job interview for a summer job, they're going to ask you who, what, when, where, basically, what did you do in the past, or why do you think you would be good on this? So you can figure out most of the questions. So let's go back to this whole system. So you have this piece of paper that you took out, and you write out all of those answers in 7 minutes. Then you're going to take a second sheet of paper. You can turn it sideways, landscape style, as my computer likes to tell me. And we're going to make a little grid on there. We're going to make 3 columns. So here's the beauty of this. We're just going to figure out a way to take all of those answers, divide them up into 3 categories that only you need to know, so that you can, if we give it a 1-word heading, you have a perfect roadmap, or GPS, I should say, be a little bit more current, for every answer. And you say, well, where am I going with these answers? So let me give you an example. If you're talking about an issue in the news, you may have written out about that issue, and here are the problems, and here's what people can do, and hey, go sign up for this thing. So if you're talking about the problems, one of your categories might be problem. And again, these categories can be anything. It's just for you to organize your answers. All right. But if you're saying, hey, these are the issues, these are the problems, maybe you call it issues. Again, I said you can call it whatever you like. That one of those categories is problem or issue, or you name it. But if you're talking about problems in this example, we probably want to talk about solutions. We're talking about something in the news. It may be get involved, go to this event, be vocal. Even though you may not be able to vote yet, go out, find out, learn, get involved in your community. And actually the way, when I say get involved or try this thing, it's actually what they call a call to action. You're asking people, you're calling on the audience to act. So the third category that I like is call to action. So you're going out, you're doing these interviews, and you're saying, look, these are some of the problems or the issues that are out there, but here's some of the solutions, or we're encouraging people to find the solutions. In fact, go to this website, get involved, try this one thing today. Those are calls to action. So these are 3 possible categories that you could be playing in. And if you like these 3, go use them. If you like 3 other ones, if you wrote red, green, blue, and that means something to you, awesome. Then do that. And this is just a way for you to organize some of your answers so that you can go out there and just say, hey, gee, if I remember to just play in these 3 areas, I'm going to have the perfect answer. And I said for you in the beginning, the more I eliminate the unknown, the better and more confident you're going to feel, because you're going to say, the sweet spot is just for me to be saying things that I've written in these categories. So then you take that first sheet and you convert the answers over here, and you may actually need to add more in 1 or 2 of the columns, which is totally fine. Here's another set of 3 that comes up often doing what I do. So sometimes I said, issue, maybe it's the facts or the details of something you're talking about or a program. So what most people do in interviews, even people who've been doing interviews forever, is they only talk about this one thing. And it's okay. There's no, nobody's going to get in trouble and you're fired from the interview. No, they're just going to ask you questions and hope for the best. And, and actually the people doing the interviews are really not expecting that much. They figure, they're young. So, who knows? I'm not worried about them being so perfect. That's awesome. But you're going to be awesome. You're going to be your own awesome because of what I'm sharing with you today. So that first category could be facts, could be details, but we can add even more. Maybe there's some benefits to getting involved or taking action, having a voice. What are the benefits? So you can start filling those in. And this is actually taken from the sales world. Sometimes I've trained people who are working at companies and are selling something. And when you hear the benefits of something, it actually makes you want it. So if I were selling a car and I said, it has these kind of tires, or it's got this color and a special kind of roof. Those are the facts or details. But the benefits are it's the safest car on the road. It makes you feel great, like you're riding on a cloud. Those are the benefits. So I've kind of stolen this from the sales world because that's where people kind of lean in and they say, oh yeah, I like that. That's kind of cool. Or I want to be a part of that. So you would put in your own benefits. And then for this one, I also have action or call to action. What can we tell people to do so they can get involved? How do we make all this bigger than just us? And it's already bigger. You've joined something that's bigger and you're helping to make it bigger and get more young voices out there. So it's so important. So yeah, that's basically the way of dealing with coming up with your answers. Any questions on that? I'm going to click stop share over here before I go back. Any questions on that? I just want to make sure you guys, do you have to do this? No, but I'm giving you techniques so that you can make it ideally easier for you. Anybody confused on any of that? It's okay, you can yell out, I need clarity over something. I don't know what you meant about this. And again, my whole thought today is just to support you guys, to make sure that you just feel great. All of you, Victoria, Joe, Alexandra, Shannon, Nicole, Jennifer, Kendra, I want you guys all to be supportive. It's kind of fun when you get to yell people's names out, right? Kimberly and Lindsay and Swara and Caleb. Oh gosh, I hope I'm not missing people. LaQuenda, Jude, Iris. I hope I didn't miss anybody. I think there are two more pages. Oh my gosh, I can't see that. Okay, good. So that's how you deal with coming up with your messages, your answers, and feeling good about it before you ever go do the interview. So now I'm going to give you some strategies. Oh, I see a question over here, a legal question. So one school in Ohio has some regulations regarding speaking to the media. If you're talking on behalf of iCivics, so I'm trying to read here and make sure that I'm not saying anything I shouldn't say or something like that. How can we make certain that when we promote or advocate or call to action that we won't inadvertently cause problems with our administrative folks or state policies or any of those things? Excellent question. And iCivics people like Amber, if there's anything that you want these students to steer clear of, I want you to share that with them, or something that anything that you were worried about. And I just want to say this again, which is if in doubt, if you're really worried about something, you're like, should I say something before I let you talk? If you're like, this is totally my opinion, but if I say, this is what iCivics thinks, and you're like, I know that it's totally my opinion on something, then maybe you say, this is my opinion. So Amber, so anything that they should steer clear of or important to bring up?
Yeah. So I would say, and I'll speak for like any iCivics educator, because I don't know if that was an educator or a student that asked that question. So anyone in iCivics programming, we are nonpartisan. So we want to remember that, taking a political stance is not necessarily something that we are into doing, right? Not left or right. We try to stay nonpartisan and we try to keep everything to facts. I know, if you're a student or educator working with iCivics, we pull in Jacob to help you out. And you'll always have some sort of, speaking points to kind of pull from. We try to do a good job of making sure that you're somewhat adequately prepared before you have to go on camera. If you're caught off guard somewhere, just randomly out, right, and someone runs up to you and is like, I'd like to talk to you about this, that's where a situation where you just do the best that you can. And, let's talk about it after, like debrief after it's over. So that's what I'd say for iCivics. There are other students from other programs, and I'm going to assume that, the lead for their program will check in with them after this is over. But yeah.
Great. And I'm glad you brought up being nonpartisan. My take, if you're I talk about this all the time when I work with companies or organizations, is we're living in a time where if you say something about one of our two political categories, you've already lost 50% of the people. They're upset about something and whatever it is. And what all of you are putting out there is bigger than that. And you can be better. And the adults are all angry and fighting and all that. So the more we, you can even have short answers. You might, by the way, get an interviewer who says, so who do you like? Who do you like for president next time? Tell us. So my recommendation for you is that I'm going to teach you a technique in just a moment called short answer, long answer, where you have a short answer that just kind of ties a bow on the question and you're done with it. Then you get to say whatever you want. So the short answer is, you know what, I'm out here representing iCivics and we keep it nonpartisan. So I'm going to keep my personal votes as secret ballot like it is, for real. But really, and now that was our short answer. Now we get to say what do we want, which is any of those three messages. So the three categories of messages. So we can say, but here's what I want people to really know today. And you get to talk about whatever you want because you had control because you just said a little something, I'm going to keep that secret. We're nonpartisan. So I'm representing a group today. So I'm going to just leave that as, my secret ballot, even though I'm not able to vote just yet, for those of you who are not able to vote. And then that's good. That'll work. So this beauty, you're going to learn the beauty in a second of this short answer, long answer. Any last things, Amber, that you want to share on that? Does it sound good?
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely perfect. Again, it's really important to be your authentic self. So we don't want to stymie that or make you feel like you can't be you. But just there's a time and place. So, Jess, that was perfect.
Fantastic. All right. I'm thrilled that we can do that. And let's see here. I'm going to open this back up and let's put this on here. All right. So next thing I want to share with you. So that was figuring out and being in control of your answers. But I had said, oh, wait, we have 100% control over our answers, but we have, I always say you don't have control over the questions. You kind of really have a lot of control over the questions. One is if Jacob and Amber send questions to them in advance saying, hey, here are some things that some sample questions that you can ask. What I found is some people are lazy and they will ask those questions. So they're going to give a whole bunch of questions that you're going to start to see how you come out and you'll get over and over. So that's kind of nice. To make life easier on you. But in this technique, and this now is called the answer system. So instead of worrying about the questions, and again, you could use this in life, in job interviews or, somebody, I don't know, whoever it is, a teacher or somebody, asks you a question, you can have way more control. So here's how this works. And I started to tell you a moment ago. So you get a question and it may be something that that's off topic or you want to grab control over. The old way that adults learned, and the ones that are not so great on some of those news channels, is where they just ignore the question. Tell us about, here's a version of it off of the question before. Who do you want to, who would you vote for in the new presidential election? And you just said, getting involved in iCivics is a great thing that I'm proud of. And on the website, we have a new event. It's like, why did she not hear me, or did he not hear me? Why are you not answering a question? So as long as we give this short answer, where I always say it's like quickly tying a bow and you're done with it. So again, you know, who you're voting for? Hey, we keep it nonpartisan, so I'm going to keep that private. But here's what I'll tell everybody else. And when we get into that, that's where we're going to add this next piece to the answer, which is your 3-part answer. You're playing in those areas that I just shared with you. So you're pulling little answers out of those 3 categories. And I show a lot of my clients to try to like, can we try to hit all 3? You know, that takes practice. But as long as you're using answers that are in those categories, you're on message. You're not just kind of like all over the place. And you know, some of it, I talked in the beginning about being real and authentic. Some of it is being you, and sharing some of your real feeling and your real emotion. But I just want to give you today some techniques that can, you know, help you feel more in control. So I want to show you a couple of videos. One is, if we're talking about a 3-part answer, a short answer and then giving a 3-part answer. This is a video of Steve Jobs, who founded Apple. And when the iPhone came out in 2007, nobody knew what this thing was, the modern day smartphone. And he was talking about how great it was, but I listened closely and I realized in this interview, he'd get a question, he'd give a short answer, and then he would play in a few different areas. So if you listen closely, you're going to hear they ask a question, and he basically, his short answer to be done with it is, well, I mean, time will tell. You know, they said, hey, how important is this? And will this change the world? Well, time will tell. So he's kind of done with the question, but now he has control. And you'll see some of the 3 areas that he plays in is he talks about change. You know, we're game changers and this is changing everything, and about it being easy. These are easy to use. The phones beforehand were not as easy to use. And then at the end, he mentions, instead of a call to action, he mentions at least the name of the product for him. So I want you to see this, and hopefully you can hear it. It's about 30 seconds long. Let's hear.
You mentioned in your keynote, you talked about the Mac, you talked about the iPod, and now there's this. What makes this such a product that would enjoy such lofty company? How important is this to Apple Computer, and why?
You know, time will tell. The Mac changed the whole computer industry, and it really made computers easy to use for the first time.
Easy.
And brought graphics into
which is
the personal
easy,
computer
I
for
guess.
the first time. The iPod changed the way we listen to music and changed the whole music industry.
Change.
I think the iPhone may really change the whole phone industry. And I think give us something that's vastly more powerful.
So in 30 seconds, he said change a few times. He talked about that it's easy. He brought up what this thing is, because we never heard of it. Of course, we've all heard of smartphones and the iPhone now, but we wanted to know why we should even care. So my point is, his short answer when they say, why is this amazing? Well, time will tell. He's in control now. Now he gets to continue talking. So he plays in those areas. And I hope that's helpful for you guys, because I think as humans, we worry about dealing with questions and how can we, best be in control. And I'm trying to peek. Oh, Gary, thank you very much. It says, yes, it's helpful. Iris is also, I think, saying the same thing. It's kind of cut off on my computer, but trying to monitor what you guys are writing over here as well. So yeah, so this, again, I want you to also think, where else can you use this in life? Because I just know these things will help you. All right, so let's see here. I want to share with you a few other things in the answer system. So it always starts with that short answer, long answer, but I want to give you some specifics. Say you get many questions at once. They ask you this question, and when is this happening, but why is it important? And what do you think about something the president said? And how about this other person? And I mentioned, Greta Thunberg or anybody else who was young, who's in the news that week. What do you think of that? And they ask you too many at once, and you're thinking, oh no, how do I even keep track? if you get many questions at once, you answer the one you like the most. That's what you do. Here is somebody doing that, and I want you just to see them in action.
Does it matter? Will it change things? And how important are symbols?
Well, first of all, it matters, I would say, from different points of view. If I may say, as a former president, I think it's good when a candidate promises something and then when it's in office, does it. Because first of all...
So here's what I want you to say. She got 3 questions, and she said, well, I think it all matters, and here's what I want to tell you. And she got to talk about it, and nobody said, wait, how dare you decide what you want to talk about. It was just fine. It worked out totally fine. So I want you to see just a couple of these techniques. And here's the one thing. So, I know we have, about an hour and a half, and I'm going to leave time for just any question at the end here. But one thing when I do the full day version of this with usually adults, and actually I've worked with kids who have worked on Disney Channel and Nickelodeon, some who are actually going out there and speaking to the news. The one thing that I'm not doing with you guys today, I'm trying to give you as much as I can in the amount of time that we have, is the practice. And I'm sharing that with you to just remind you, you can go practice. Again, hand this off. We have this great video recording device that's built into all of our gadgets, and you can go practice and then go see. And guess what? The first time you practice anything, you're not perfect. But if you practice it a bunch of times, you're going to get better and better. And by the way, nobody's perfect. Oh, light bulb, what? Nobody is, but we want to get better and better. So we want to do more of what's working and do less of what's not working. And then just say, all right, I'm good with it. Let's do it. Thank you. It says here, I'm glad you added that. It's hard to answer simple. Multiple questions at once. LaQuinda, thank you. All right. So, and let's see if I'm missing anybody else, some fun emojis that are on there. Okay. So, yeah. Here, I'll tell you what this one is. Okay. So back to the answer system. I'm giving you 2 other techniques in dealing with questions. Sometimes an interviewer will say something and we feel, we almost go into this mode of being like a good student. I say this to adults all the time too. Like, oh, I'm a good student and I don't want to disagree with them, or I might repeat something they say. If they say something that you do not agree with, don't repeat it. And it's important for me to say this because people get trapped, adults get trapped in this all the time. So Bill Gates, who started Microsoft, he was interviewed, and he gets this question that if he repeated it, people would say that Microsoft's terrible, and he even said his own company that he's founded was terrible. But his short answer here, which could have been, no, I disagree with you, is actually, ha, 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 he laughs, and then he gets to say whatever he wants. So never repeat something you don't agree with. I just want you to see this video.
Microsoft maybe isn't the innovative, energizing institution it once was. Maybe it's lost its edge. Have you lost your edge?
Well, throughout the history of Microsoft, that question has come up because in the world of technology, you often have a leader who gets replaced.
And he gets to talk about whatever he wanted to talk about. So very important. He didn't repeat. If he said, well, a lot of people think Microsoft's lost its edge, or that we make terrible products, or that products freeze up, or whatever, imagine he said that, then it came out of his mouth. So don't allow a news person or anybody, a YouTuber, you name it, don't let them put words in your mouth. You be in control of your words. So it's important for me to say it to you and anybody I help. Like I said, I've said this to big heads of companies who stopped and just said, yeah, I needed to hear that. I needed you to tell me that because I would have felt like, oh, they're in control, and to say, no, I'm not gonna repeat something. So I want you to hear that. I'll give you one more technique for dealing with questions that will really help you in the last video here, which is, I call this the I don't know technique. If you don't know something, you're like, oh no, I don't know the answer to that. Well, what statistics, give me the numbers of percentage of young people who feel this way about this issue and you're thinking like, I don't know, why are you asking me that? It's okay to not know things. And here's how you answer the question. You can say, I don't know, as long as you follow it with something you do know. And by the way, this is super sneaky. You can use this in your life. Use it with your parents or, teachers and leaders or whatever, groups that you're involved with, or a boss if you have, a part-time job, you can use it. My kids they know all my tricks. And they're like, did you just use something on me? I'm like, no, I'm just talking to you. But you know everything, and now this is a problem. Okay, so let me share, and I know people are commenting, but I want you to see this I don't know technique. So actually this is kind of relevant for you guys because you're gonna get political questions. This guy is, in this interview, is a military expert. So he's gonna go out there and talk about the military and why different, military groups around the country, around the world do what they do, and doesn't want to get into the politics of it. So he kind of used the I don't know technique. So let's hear him say it.
Is that going to be a hard thing just politically for him to turn him down?
Well, I don't know much about the politics, but I can certainly tell you from a military perspective, you have the finest lineup.
So he said, I don't know. Hey, I can tell you from a military perspective. So you can say, well, I don't know the exact numbers on that. Here's what I can tell you. I can tell you what my friends say, or what is a growing trend as far as I see it, or what my wish is for young people out there or for adults if they would just go do this. So you just said, well, I don't know that. I'm going to tell you this. And it totally works. It totally works. So I hope you write that down because I'm proud of figuring these things out. Felix said, how did you come up with some of this stuff? Some of it is just working on television and seeing people like that guy, seeing people do that and saying, you don't need to know everything. You can say, I don't know, and follow it. It's better to follow it with something you do know, because if you just said, I don't know, and then just kind of sat back, that would, then it would be weird. We wouldn't want one-word answers like yes, no. Usually we want to give just a little bit more. So just for me to tie a bow on some of this, you have two choices in these interviews. You can go to, in your brain and you're answering questions to, what I call the world of everything you know, or you can make life easier on yourself. You can go to instead, those three categories of answers that you wrote out and then just work with those. You have a short answer. You're like, well, I don't know about that, but I can tell you this. Or, hey, here's something that I really, really want to make sure that your audience knows. Or, you know what, I don't know if that's the biggest problem. Let me tell you what some of the biggest problems are. So that is my recommendation of where you would go and play. I'm just keeping an eye on time. I know we're about 8 minutes after. I know it's about 90 minutes. I have one other piece that I want to give you on creating cool quotes, which are called sound bites when it comes to TV or radio. And I'm going to just kind of give you the template. You could take a picture of it with your phone, and we'll probably give some sort of a handout at some point afterwards. Any questions? And I'm going to give 2 minutes here to questions. I'm going to share something else and then go back to any questions that you have. And let's see if I missed anything. So anybody want to unmute?
Hi, I have a question.
Elena,
how do we
welcome
handle
to the show, as they say, if this were TV.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
How do we handle questions that catch us off guard and that we weren't expecting?
So using any of those techniques, especially the short answer. So can you think of a question that would catch you off guard or that you really wouldn't want to get in an interview? And I'll use it as an example.
Like, for instance, questions about like my personal life at school when I'm trying to talk about an organization I'm working for.
Great. So let's take your personal life. Well, let's get let me find out. Is this something that you would do? So you're thinking to yourself, oh, they got personal, and we decide maybe I'm not comfortable sharing something like that. And you could say, well, I'm not going to go deep into my personal life, for the rest of the world. you know, one thing I can share certainly for other young people who are watching is, and you go to something that you're comfortable talking about. So it's that short answer and the long answer. And sometimes the short answer might be, you know, they say, isn't it true that rah, 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 rah. Your short answer might be, no, actually, no. Here's actually what we're doing. It's like, oh, okay, well, that was the end of that. Is that helpful for you, Elena?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, good. Yeah, and you know, find places in life to practice some of that. It works so well. Anybody else want to unmute and ask a question?
Hi, I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Is it Angel?
yeah, it's Angel.
Hi, Angel, take it away.
Okay, cool. So how do we approach interviewers who might purposely throw curveball questions that are kind of intended to misconstrue like our message or like damage our credibility?
You can, so in your short answer, so sometimes curveballs are intended and sometimes they're not intended. So I think Elena's was a perfect example of they ask something personal, or it may, prior to tonight, it might feel like a curveball if they say, what do you think about what happened yesterday or with the impeachment or something that happened in the news? And you decide, am I going to be too partisan? Am I going to, how am I going to deal with it? And you always come back to that short answer, long answer. I'm going to read through some of these chat questions in a second, which is, if you're surprised, you can, maybe your short answer is, you know what, that's not actually something that we deal with. And this is actually something that we deal with. Or the, I don't know, you know what, I don't have the stats on that. Or that's not something that I've studied. I'll tell you what I did study in focusing on this issue for young people, and it's this. And what I found is, or what we found is, then you talk about it. So if you play with these techniques, you're gonna find that you don't have to answer those questions because prior to now, you felt like, oh no, what are they gonna ask? And you kind of, you know, biting your fingernails wondering. Hopefully that was helpful, Angel.
Yeah, it was, thank you.
Oh, good, no, I'm glad. So I'm looking here to just see here, just to clarify, when you say something, it can be then quoted. Yes, so anything that comes out of your mouth can be quoted. And so if you repeat something like, this program is bad, if they said that, you know, some interviewer would be like, I don't like, actually one of my clients in the last week, somebody was angry and they wrote a blog about it and they mentioned my client. And I'm not going to speak specifically about her. And then they put something on Twitter. So my client was upset. Understandably, we don't want someone to be, you know, mean. And I said two things. One is that this guy has a blog and his whole thing is being angry. So we're not going to worry about this guy because that's his whole life. He wants to be angry at the world. So she was like, yeah, I think you're right. And I said the second is for her, because she's really in the spotlight. I said, you know, at a certain point, if you pick anybody that you love in the world, they're going to be those, like on the internet, I'm just sharing this with you, comments that they're going to be nice comments, some mean ones, and we have to just, it's an exercise in letting go of that and embracing what's great about you. And I, you know, wish that they didn't have those people. I hope I'm answering these questions, but let me go back over here. Don't repeat something. So if they said, this program is bad, you can say, that may be your opinion, but I'm going to tell you, that's a short answer, but I'm going to tell you what amazing stuff has been happening. And anytime we get to hear more young people voices, that's a good thing. And here's something else. So see, short answer, long answer. So even if you continue, I'm reading the chat here with, but what we really do well is, it can always be taken out of context and quoted as this program is bad. So what we want to do is be done with it by saying something like, that may be your opinion. Let me tell you about all the great stuff. So we're not repeating any of those things. And we can practice this. It actually, in the practice, if you're doing it with a parent or a sibling or a friend, it's actually kind of fun as you look at these techniques and you're like, now be mean to me, or now ask me something about, you know, the Super Bowl, or, you know, anything that you're like, why are they asking about that? Because you can practice with the short answer and long answer, and then you get better at it, and then it's kind of fun. It's like Now ask me anything. Ask me about tuna fish sandwiches. You're like, well, I don't know about that, or why I don't have an opinion on tuna fish sandwiches, but I could tell you about this. And you just get amazing at it. Iris says, is it valid to kind of change the way we speak and act depending on the medium of interview, or the interview or the audience, or does it come off as inauthentic? Should we try to create a coherent persona instead? So I think we should think about what medium, where are we talking to, is it a news audience? I wouldn't change. I wouldn't change if they're, Democrat or Republican or conservative or liberal. I would just try to be neutral regardless as far as that goes. But when you say medium, I'm thinking also it is a little bit different on a TV show where they give you 3 minutes and a podcast where they give you an hour. You get to talk about whatever you want. Or a TikTok video and it's 30 seconds and it's a meme. So that's where you would really just kind of go with what your gut is telling you is the right way to approach it. And actually, Iris, just even the fact that you are going to do a little bit of research to say, oh yeah, who's going to be interviewing me? Then you have a sense of, oh, okay, I see how it plays out. And again, you'll feel more confident going in it. I'm just going to take these 2 questions and then I got to just say something about great quotes. Caleb says, how do you handle an interviewer that won't let a question go? Great, Caleb, even after you've tried to steer the conversation in another direction. So here's what I'm going to give you permission to say. Before I give you permission for this one thing, I'm going to say a lot of times they don't let a question go because people haven't at least used that short answer technique. Of saying, yeah, Gary agrees too. Caleb's question is awesome. So the short answer at least is helping us to be done with the question. When we see people on TV and they're dodging questions and they're not answering and they're talking about their own partisan thing, the interviewer just keeps coming back. You didn't answer the question, didn't answer the question. So even if the short answer is, I don't know, or no, I disagree, or you know what, I'm not going to get into that. I'm just not. I don't feel comfortable with it. And sorry, that's all I'm going to give you. And I'm going to tell you this other thing that I think is really relevant. They kind of have to stop at a certain point. And just to add it, usually that's totally enough. But if they weren't letting it go, I'd be okay if they had, let's say they said 3 times, 4 times, you say, I'm sorry, you're going to have to just let it go. I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to get into partisan politics. That's not why I want to be here today. And then that's your short answer. You go over the long answer. Jude says, what should you do if an interviewer has led you on a tangent and you realize that you need to return to your message? First, and I'm going to read the second half of that. Jude, just the fact that you realize that you're on a tangent, you can say as part of a short answer, I think we're getting off on a tangent here. Here's what I want people to know. You can take control back. That's the whole purpose of this web broadcast today, for me to be able to share this with you. I want you guys to realize you have so much more control than you realize. And I'm not saying that just because you're younger. I say that to all of my clients because they don't realize. They think, oh, I got to, the interviewer's in control. They're going to take me somewhere. They're bringing you on because you have something to share that they don't know about. One of the things they don't know about is your perspective on the world. And the other is everything that you've learned through this program and in your own studies to bring to the table on this. So the second half of that is it too late after you've already started? It's not. Maybe you start talking, you say, but we're getting off on a tangent. You bring it back over where you need to be. It works. It's great. All right. So hold all your questions and keep them in mind. And I'm going to bring it back over and share my screen and show you something else over here. So let's see here. So we had that up, and now I want to jump in and I want to bring you through to what I like to call the soundbite quote system. So there's all different interviews, as one of you was asking me, do I have to be exactly the same for everybody? No. And like I said, an hour-long podcast or radio show You get to talk a little bit longer. If you're going to be on CNN or Fox or MSNBC, they'll usually tell you, you know what, you're probably only going to have 3 minutes. So say your most important stuff. If you were in the newspaper, they're going to talk to you usually on the phone. They might actually send you an interview where you see questions, you get to write it back on email. That's becoming a little bit more popular, but it's better if they talk to you on the phone and they ask you questions, but usually they're looking for facts and information, but they're looking for your quote. What are you saying that just jumps out of the paragraphs of what you say? What can they use and put quotes in their story? So newspapers call them quotes. TV and radio call them sound bites because it's that one bite of sound. So some of you who have already gone out there and talked to the media, you may have talked to them for an hour and they only use one answer. And you're like, you say, gee, that was weird. But that's how they do it, or they use 2 answers. So I'm going to give you the template now for having all of the perfect quotes. And this is it. So take a screenshot, take a look at it. I'm going to give some examples. In fact, I'm going to use iCivics as the example. I'll share something else on my screen so you can see some of this. I think I have to change it to share it. But if you speak in a wishy-washy way, you're not quotable. When you speak in absolutes like we see on there, they want to have you saying, you must do this. This is exactly how we're going to do it, or this is exactly what's happening. So whenever you speak in absolutes, then that makes an answer more quotable. And I'm going to show you an iCivics answer in a story that falls into that. I'm not going to go through all of these, but when you bring up the facts, they'll quote you saying a fact or giving an example of something that happened at an event. That's pretty good. Action-oriented words, like I was moved, I was shaken when I learned to hear this one thing. Action words. What I want you to do is I want you to go to news websites. We used to open a newspaper. Now you can just go to a news website. Actually, I like to go to news.google.com. And if you go to news.google.com, it has all different newspapers and news sites from all across the web. And look at who's being quoted, whose answer is in quotes. You're going to see this stuff show up. And I'm telling you a secret today. When you play with some of these, and we don't have time to go too deep into it, because the most important stuff I wanted for you today was some of the style pieces and the substance of figuring out your core answers or messages and being able to deal with any question. This is like the cherry on top, which, by the way, is a cliche. The cherry on top, which on the second side over there, cliches. So if I started my answer with, look, the bottom line is young people need to have a voice today, which is an absolute. I did a 2-for-1. I used the cliche and I use an absolute. It makes you more quotable. At the end of the day, blank, you say whatever you're going to say. There's one called the triple play. We need to do this, and we need to do this, and we need to do this. Why do these things work? I don't know. But when I left television, I started my business, as Felix was asking, I said, what were we looking for when we would go and find quotes? We always said behind the scenes, we said, I know it when I hear it, but what were we looking for? And if I can show you what works, now you can come up with some juicy quotes beforehand and have a little bit more control. Last couple of things on the left side there. Emotion, adding some real emotion. And by the way, just go with what you feel comfortable with. I want you to see that these are the main ones that make it out there and then we see out there. Using analogies are great. This fix is just a Band-Aid solution. So again, take a shot of that and you can go back to it. And I just want you to think about it. You don't have to be perfect at this part. But here's what I want to show you. So let me switch this and see if I can just share my whole screen and see where it is on the screen. Here we go. So let's see, bring up Zoom and click share. I'm going to just share the whole desktop. Here we go. So I'm going to show you some of these articles. Let's move it down so I can see it. So this is an article that was put out there about iCivics for Event News Enterprise. And here's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the sake of this piece here, somebody being quoted. And here we go. I happen to have highlighted it. So let me zoom in a little bit. The goal of ECYF is to allow youth of our country to have their voices heard. So this is a fact. So that's why that piece is being quoted. And it's something that is very important to me. Ooh, okay, so there's some emotion. This is important to me. I think a lot of people underestimate the impact of an active youth, that active youth have on our world. And so there's some opinion in there. So sometimes opinion actually can be one of those. My goal personally is to create global change through the tools ECYF gives me. So this is also an absolute. This is what I'm trying to do. So I see those pieces rise to the top, and I see that, in my opinion, is why that one was chosen. Let's see what this one is. I'll try to highlight it here. Let's see here. So we created Equity and Civics Youth Fellowship to address one of the most significant challenges that we in civic education face. So it's an absolute. This is a fact of what we did. That's why I was quoted. For far too long, critics have been taught only one perspective. Ooh, there's some emotion there, and it's an absolute. So it just makes it a little bit more quotable. Let me show you one of the other articles over here. So this one is, let's see, Parenting OC, whatever that news site is. They used the same picture that was put out. And let's see what this quote is. I've always, absolute, it's an absolute. We're talking about absolute terms. I've always been interested in civics education and trying to promote change and giving education to everyone. Everyone, it's an absolute. So now that I've put this on your radar, I want you to realize that it's out there. And I'm gonna just kind of finish the main part of the stuff I'm talking about because I know we're hitting towards the end. I'll stay extra and answer any of your questions. But I wanted to, I was going through the website and I saw the video, which was just up here. I think I clicked on it and here it is. And I just wanted to show you don't have to be perfect. You do want to be in control of your words and you want to be authentic. So I know these three kids here.
Students that are receiving the most help and ability to get into a good industry or get those high-paying jobs with a solid educational foundation are the students who don't need it the most.
So one thing I want to say about her is she came off as real, as authentic. She was moving some of her body language. Fantastic. Should we nitpick and pull apart every little thing? No. If you do a practice, you want to do something better, then make that change. But don't beat yourself up. I think these three kids are fantastic, actually. And I always come from a place of highlighting what works, do more of it. And if you don't like something, make that switch over. Just be better on the next one. Make a change. That's how we get better at things in life. Let's see this.
Give like carrots to schools that they need to like maybe like teach their kids at home. So that if we do continue to lose teachers, we can also like depend on families to teach their kids.
So now he had something of substance to say. Great. Now he may have watched and said, oh, I think I said or like. Okay, notice it and just make that change in the next one. Do you think people who are watching are going to say, how dare you, I can never listen to it? No, they're going to say, oh, that was an interesting point. And that would be the end of it. But after today, I want to just highlight, what we can be looking at.
How much civic education doesn't matter as much as who gets it. So if we have a lot of civic education, it doesn't matter if it's only going to predominantly white schools. So we need students, especially underrepresented students, to have these opportunities. And I talk about how teachers can do that throughout my passage. And that is by giving them more local opportunities and connecting that civic education to what the students have done in their own lives.
So I wanted to end the main part of this with you seeing three other young people like you who are part of this program who have something really interesting and I think powerful to say. To me as an adult, it's way, way more powerful to see you guys, to see your faces and to hear you say what you're saying. And, you know, I brought up in the beginning the whole confidence thing, because I don't know what's going through any of your heads. If you're part of this program, you're already playing a bigger game. You're already out there and you're like, all right, I'm doing this. I'm going to let the world know, and I'm going to, you know, do something bigger. And I want to say, just, you know, awesome. It's fantastic. Two, it's going to make all this stuff is going to trickle over into the rest of your life. Just as a human being that's standing up to other people or taking control of conversations, I think it's going to be a great experience for you. You know, whether you do it in a smaller way or a bigger way, or just even the practicing and all of that. And I hope that you enjoy the process and some cool things happen. But I want you to be able to have the confidence to say, you know what, I'm going to practice it. I'm just going to do the best I can. And just know that if we see you, your face, your voice, certainly as an adult, we're going to say, wow, okay, I'm impressed that you're even coming to the table. Having said that, I want to take questions. And Amber, I know, like right at the line here, do you think we can let people ask some last questions? It's okay, good. Yeah, I just didn't want to leave out certain content. What's that?
Does anyone have questions? Does anyone have any questions?
Questions or any kind of comments, you name it, anything that's going through your head or social media stuff. I'm going to let people, oh, okay. Oh, we even can see Shannon. Hey,
Hello,
yay,
hello.
Shannon.
So I have kind of a niche question, and this is from a teacher supporting students as we put them in front of media more often. I teach in a 70% Hispanic Latino community, and some of my most stellar students are not the most stellar English language speakers yet. They have a lot to say, but they are terrified to be put in front of a microphone, especially when they can't necessarily rehearse every single answer ahead of time. Do you have any advice to help students like that find their voice, be the authentic representatives of their community, short of, okay, I'm going to pick the best English speakers in the room?
Yeah, no, great question. And that comes up often. I said to you, I work with the United Nations. So you have people who have expertise, who have been working their whole life on something, and they say the exact same thing to me, which is they say, I don't know if there's going to be a problem, if people can understand me, and then I'll feel like I'm less than perfect. And I'll say, okay, here's what we want to do. One, we want to make sure for certain people that I work with who have accents, the number one thing is, can we understand the message that you're trying to convey? You don't have to be perfect. So I'm telling it to I'm talking about top level UN officials. And I'm telling it to your to you to share with your students, which is, you don't have to be perfect, but the message has to get through. You know, it's that is the more important part. They're going to do the best they can. They're a student. That really is all the best that we can do, and we want to just make sure the message is not lost, and they can practice. They can practice with you or each other, and use, you know, these recording devices to look back, and then you can guide them and say, and you need to decide, was the message lost? Is there a little something that they can play with? And if they hit a certain point in the middle of the interview and they're thinking to themselves, you know what, I'm sorry, my English is not perfect, but here's really what I want to share with you. Wow, what an authentic moment. Right. Share that with them. Yeah, that's a great short answer, because it's just owning that we're not perfect at something. Mm-hmm. And guess what, everybody? We're all not perfect, because we are human beings. So thank you, Shannon.
Can I add one more thing? I've definitely seen a lot of people say the sentence or the response in their native tongue, and then they dial it back and explain it to the interviewer in English what that means. And sometimes even that, it's you being your authentic self, bringing your own culture and experience to the table, and that is super helpful too.
Yes, fantastic. So that's another thing, Shannon, that you can share with them. I mean, if they turn and they said it, and then they said it again, or there's a little something that was kind of going off camera, I don't think anybody would fault them for being real. And
have you ever used
Yeah.
So obviously, you mentioned if the UN ambassador from a country is answering questions or has to interview, they're also going to be able to bring a translator. And I mean, frequently it's, after a certain level, you don't have to speak English because we will do that for you, but nobody's bringing a translator when they're going to interview my students. However, frequently we have groups of students. Is the turning to a classmate after a question and asking the classmate to help them mediate the language difference while they're being interviewed a negative, or does that still fall in the we still seeing you be authentic and this is still great?
I would rather be authentic. Mm-hmm. And actually, a lot of the UN folks don't get to have somebody in an interview with them, and they just do the best they can. But I would rather just be real and authentic, and they can say that, I'm sorry, I'm not as great at English, but I'm passionate about this topic. So in my opinion, it's like, wow, that's done with. Now we're really not paying attention to that, and that they shouldn't feel like they have to always say that every time.
Right.
And also even realizing that some of these issues, it's even bigger than you, right? It's like, oh, I'm going to worry about my thing, but I'm doing something that I can reach out and inspire other kids who are out there. And you know what? Maybe that's something bigger. So sometimes we could connect with that. We feel better. Yeah, that's good. And I see here, let's see, Kimberly said, is there recovery after the fact? Is it necessary or should we let something go? Get out on your own to fix it? What if we really mess up? Hey, we're all human. What's the fix? So hopefully, Kimberly, I'm answering this. I know you're still on the line here. And hopefully I'm getting it right. If I'm getting it wrong, let me know. But if you really messed something up, here's one thing I will tell you. 99.99% of the time, nobody messes something up so bad that I'm not even going to come up with something that would be like the worst thing I could think. I don't know, like I got up out of my chair for some reason. I tripped over into the camera and spilt stuff or whatever it is. That's not the norm. If you stumbled on some word, the stuff that people really make a mistake in is that they could stumble on a word and then you just say it the right way and nobody ever remembers it. Or you said something that wasn't 100% right and you came back to it and said, actually, you know what, I just want to come back to that and share this one thing. But I'm going to tell you the real mistake that I see, or the real problem. The real problem is that people go out, they don't really practice. They don't say anything that's so passionate or amazing. They just say a couple of random things and nothing really happens. Or they don't take the chance and go do the interview. And then they spend more time in their life regretting stuff we didn't do. More often we regret stuff we did not do. I'm telling you, because I'm older than you guys. We'll regret stuff we didn't do than something that we did that wasn't perfect. We're like, oh, I wish I just said that thing, or I wish I tried that out. So the thing is, you're saying, oh, should we go back to it? And we're going to worry about that. And I get that we're people. This is like what we think. And people who work with me all the time ask these questions, like, what if this happens? What if that happens? It's rare. Sometimes when somebody's running for president, because the spotlight is really, really on them, we're in a presidential cycle right now. They asked a presidential candidate a couple of cycles ago. The adults may remember this. Maybe some of you guys do. I'm not going to say who they were. But they said, you said you want to get rid of a few of the, what was it? I forgot what it was. There was a few areas of government that they wanted to get rid of. So this person said, here's what I'm going to get rid of. 3 areas: education, energy, and and then they were, because they were running for president, they let that person sweat and all that stuff. First of all, if you ever said number 1 is this, number 2 is this, and you forgot what number 3 is, you say, just see numbers 1 and 2. That's all I want to share. No, 2 of them instead. You can do that. If you're not running for president, you can get away with that. Totally fine. And just say, well, I guess I only had 2 for you. I thought I had 3, I had 2. That's the end. That's the end of that. So you can get away with so much more. Just be real and authentic is the part that I go back to be like, you know what? I forgot where I was going to go with that, but here's something else I can tell you. And actually, if you kind of forget your train of thought, actually don't even tell them. Just say, hey, here's something else I really want to share with you. Because that happens. We're real people. We sometimes forget, where was I going with this? And then just say, yeah, here's, you know what? Here's what I really want people to know. And then say that thing. I see a couple of questions in here. Let's see here. Gary, I don't understand your question. So Gary, add more clarity on it. And Amber, you want to say something?
Yeah, let's take one more question because we have to wrap it up, unfortunately.
We're gonna wrap it up.
But yeah, unfortunately. So let's take LaQuinda's question.
Great.
How would you go about answering that one?
That you weren't prepared for. Asking a question you weren't prepared for. I would use the I don't know technique. I would put it in the short answer and say, listen, while I don't have the full information on that, here's something else I can share with you. So as a final thought, just because I know we went over on time, and it was an absolute pleasure to share with all of you. Again, thank you so much for all of what you guys are gonna do. I hope you have fun with it. The last thought is this. Go out, try this new thing that's new for you. Be amazing, share with the world. Don't be so hard on yourself, not just with interviews, but in life. And with that, I'll just leave it at that. All right, thank you for having me today.
Jess, thank you so very much. You are amazing. This is an absolute treat. We are so thankful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And if the students wanted to reach out to you, are they able to just drop in a comment on your site or anything like that?
They sure can. So you can either go old school and use email. As one of my kids would be like, Dad, we don't email, but you can go on email. You can go to my website, which is successinmedia.com. My name is Jess, Jess, so Jess at successinmedia.com is my website. So if I didn't answer a question, it's a burning question, you can go over there. That's probably the best place. But if you search my name on the internet, I'm on the various social networks, and you can figure out where to ask me a question, and happy to share. So thank you for that.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you. Yes, the recording will be available probably tomorrow. So I'll email it out to everyone who was on the email. And Jeff, obviously, you will also get a copy. And then the youth fellows and youth experts in my program, you guys are going to have a quick assignment to give feedback about what you learned from this. Jess, if you want to know what they learned, I'm excited to share that with you as well. And that's pretty much it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, the students from Civics Unplugged. Thank you, all of my students and the Educator Network members and anyone from the Civics Now Coalition who joined us this evening. Thank you, Jess. Thank you, Jacob. Everyone have a great rest of your evening. Take care, everyone. Bye.